This is my presentation on fetal alcohol syndrome. These are the three sources that I have used in the course of my work. All three I'm providing direct links for in the description of this video. The very first one, put out by Christian Blatchke, Marcia Maltaverne, and Judy Struck from the University of South Dakota, was by far the most comprehensive one of the three. It provided teaching strategies and coping mechanisms within the classroom for all elementary, middle school, and high school students, so I really highly recommend that. First of all, we have to talk about what fetal alcohol syndrome is. Well, fetal alcohol syndrome, or FAS, is caused in utero when the mother consumes alcohol during pregnancy. There are a range of outcomes that can result from this. It's collectively referred to fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, or FASD. The spectrum includes categories such as neurobehavioral disorders and static encephalopathy, or permanent brain damage, as well as FAS. There are a number of markers of an FAS child, for instance, growth deficiencies, facial anomalies, cognitive deficits, or abnormalities. The term fetal alcohol exposure, or FAE, has also been used when there's a documented history of prenatal alcohol exposure and the presence of some, but not all, of the diagnostic criteria for FAS. It is not a mild case of FAS. So you will notice in the course of my presentation, I will refer to this as FAS and also FASD. I use the terminology that was used in whichever source that I used, so I stayed consistent with the original source. There's a rating scale that health professionals use. The severity of the abnormalities depends on the amount of alcohol consumed during pregnancy. All markers are illustrated by a scale that can show no evidence, so they would mark it with a 1, mild evidence with a 2, moderate with 3, or severe evidence marked by a 4. The rating scale for FAS children is specific to the child and reflects one of 4 categories in this order. First showing growth deficiencies, facial anomalies, cognitive deficits, and then finally evidence of maternal alcohol consumption. These images show the facial anomalies present in children. They are most easily identified between 3 and 14 years of age, and of course as the child grows, they're a little more difficult to recognize. So let's say, for instance, a child with severe growth deficiencies of 4, moderate facial anomalies of 3, mild cognitive deficits of 2, and evidence of severe or heavy maternal alcohol consumption of 4 is then given a diagnostic 4-digit code of 4324, which is classified as a neurobehavioral disorder alcohol exposed. There are over 256 possible code combinations, each one having a different impact on the student. Now let's take a look at the impact in the classroom. So I'm going to look at 5 different issues that can come up in a classroom. So language or communication disorders, social behaviors, academic or cognitive problems, adaptive behavior, and physical functioning problems. So some of these, for instance, language, communication, and social behavior, those two can kind of be tackled by and large in the same route. Same thing with academic or adaptive behavior and sometimes physical functioning. Sometimes these strategies that we use in our classroom can be for more, or can tackle more than one problem at a time. So let's take a look right now at language or communication problems. Maybe they can't read social cues or nonverbal language appropriately. They may lack understanding of things at a critical or metaphorical level. They may also be overly social or talkative, but may also have expressive difficulties. Some things you can do in your classroom while using speech and language therapy to model and role-play appropriate conversations with a structured peer group. You will see the idea of modeling and role-playing come up throughout each of these issues. This ends up being a strategy that can be used for many of them. Rehearse the skills one-on-one first, and then practice with the entire group. Emphasize verbal explanations. Another problem you might encounter in your classroom is social or behavior problems. Students with FAS may lack interpersonal skills. For example, they may not share well or cooperate well. They may lack understanding of consequences or be able to accurately predict the outcome of their actions. They may struggle with attention deficit or hyperactivity, for instance, ADD or ADHD. They may have temper tantrums, outbursts, or be impulsive or unpredictable. They may suffer from things like depression or esteem issues. They may have issues regulating their behavior. Furthermore, their behaviors might include things like lying, stealing, defiance, being easily manipulated and led by others, having difficulty making and keeping friends, being overly friendly and affectionate, being easily approached by strangers. It may also be what we would call stubborn. So, some useful strategies you can employ in your classroom to combat these social or behavioral problems by putting a chart on the student's desk, for instance, that reinforces and reminds the student of the appropriate skill to demonstrate in various settings. It would be a visual reminder for the student. Adult supervision during these non-structured settings, like recess or lunchtime, it's key to consistent reinforcement. Make behavior contracts with clear expectations and consequences, and concrete rewards given or taken away. Role-play scenarios that show cause and effect. Modeling appropriate behavior and asking the student to constantly reflect on his or her own behavior is something that you're going to have to do over and over again, and you will see that with all of the issues. Another issue you might have in the classroom is academic or cognitive problems. They might have difficulty understanding abstract ideas, and they might lack motivation or organization. They may have difficulty retaining information on a short-term basis, for instance.